catch you stop believing in is already moving toward the side of your empty boat. Not because you finally rowed hard enough, not because you learned to read the water better than the men beside you, not because the long cold night out there earned anything back at last. Right now, before this message ends, I want to bring you to one word I spoke once, over a boat as empty as yours, and I want to answer the question you have been carrying since the last time the nets came up with nothing in them, whether an empty net is my sentence against you, or whether it has been something else entirely. This whole time, and no one ever told you. I see you. I have watched you push off from the shore, while it was still dark. Pull back in with nothing lying in the bottom of the boat. Not the small kind of nothing a person shrugs off before breakfast. The kind that slowly starts to feel like an answer. The kind you begin to build a whole quiet opinion of yourself around. You worked the long stretch and came home into the light, still feeling a full step behind the day. You held the family together, with a steadiness that no one at the table has ever once named as courage. You prayed the same short prayer so many times, the words went smooth as river stones in your mouth, and you watched the surface of your life stay flat and gray and unmoved. There is a tiredness in you that sleep does not reach. Because it was never the body that got so tired, it is the part of a person that keeps putting the effort out and keeps drawing the same empty net back in. I know the different shapes it takes. The one who has poured years into a work that still will not turn a profit, lies awake doing the arithmetic in the dark. The one caring for a parent who no longer remembers their name, giving and giving into a face that gives nothing back. The one still waiting on a child who walked out a door, has not walked back through it. The one who does everything right, watches the people who cut corners sail past them. Different boats, different waters. The same empty net drawn up at the end of it, and the same quiet ache under the ribs. Where did all of that effort go? And why did so little of it come back to me? None of that emptiness happened while I was looking somewhere else. I was out on that water. Every night you were sure you were rowing it alone. I heard the oars knocking in the locks. I heard the quiet arithmetic you ran on the way back to shore, the counting of what you spent against what came of it, and how rarely the two ever seemed to meet in the middle. I did not turn away from a single crossing, and I counted something you never thought to count, not the empty nets. The number of times you went back out anyway. You have pushed off from that shore more times than you could ever tally, after more disappointments than most people would have survived. And you rose and went out again. That returning is not nothing to me. A lesser heart would have left the boat on the sand years ago, and you have kept it hidden well. When someone asks how things are going, you answer from the dock, not from the boat. You describe a catch you did not actually bring in. You have learned to carry an empty net the way a person carries a folded coat over one arm, easy and casual, so that no one looks twice or asks what is underneath it. It is exhausting, this quiet performing of a fullness you do not feel. It has left you surrounded by people, and strangely alone in the middle of them, because not one of them knows the boat came back empty again. I know. I have always been the one riding back in with you, past all the smiling, past the we are fine, and the could not be better. You have never once had to pretend with me, though I understand well enough why you learned to. Here is what the empty net has slowly taught you to believe, and I want to reach for it gently, because you did not come to believe it carelessly. You learned it inside years that were painfully real. Somewhere behind you, there was a season when trying harder truly was the whole difference. Between going under and staying up, when the only thing standing between you and the bottom was how early you rose and how late you stayed out on the cold water. That watchfulness kept you breathing, and I honored every hour of it. But a rule built for one drowning season does not always know how to notice when the season has finally passed. So the counting stayed on after the danger left, and the net kept coming up light in your hands. You kept reading the lightness as a report card, written about your own worth. Come a little closer to the side of the boat, while I say the next part to you. There is no rush anywhere in it. You are not late for anything here. You began to believe, without ever quite deciding to. A full net means a person is favored. An empty one means they have been quietly passed over. That if you truly wanted the thing, the healing, the door that will not open, the person who will not turn back around toward you, the water would have already given it up by now. So every empty return home quietly became a small trial, and you were always the one standing trial in it. And the sentence handed down at the end was always the same worn sentence: not enough, did not try hard enough, was simply not the kind of person the good things ever swim toward. You have carried that sentence for so long, you stopped hearing it as a sentence at all. It just became the weather in you. The low gray light, everything else got seen through. Someone praises the work you did, and a voice underneath is already discounting it. A good stretch arrives, and part of you stands guard, waiting for it to end, because you have decided in advance. That fullness is not a thing that stays with people like you. You can even remember, if you go looking for it, the first empty night that taught you the rule, the first time you gave something everything you had in you, and it came to nothing, and a young part of you quietly concluded that this was simply how it would always go. That safety from then on meant never again expecting the water to give anything back. That conclusion made a kind of sense the day you first reached it. It protected the tender thing in you from hoping and then losing all over again. But it was a child's math, done in the dark, in haste, under more pain than a child should ever have had to carry. And you have been carrying that math into rooms and onto boats it was never meant to follow you into. I was there on that first empty night too. I did not agree with the conclusion you drew about yourself. I have been waiting a long and patient time for the chance to tell you so. I want to take that sentence out of your hands and hold it up to the light, so you can finally see who actually wrote it. But before I do, I want to read you what I really said, out loud. On a day that looked a great deal like the one still sitting behind you, there was a lake, and a crew that had worked the whole night through, and dragged in nothing. Empty ropes, clean, useless, well-mended nets. That particular silence of men who have stopped talking to each other, because there is nothing left to say. About a night like that one, I stood on the shore in the thin gray light, close enough to call across the water, far enough that they could not yet make out that it was me standing there. And I did not tell them to row harder. I did not tell them to go further out, or to want it more than they wanted it, or to prove something to me first before I would lift a finger to help. This is what I said. John 21:6. Cast the net on the right side of the boat, and you will find some. Read it slowly with me, because every word in that sentence is doing quiet work. Cast the net. The very same net they had already been throwing all night long. Not a finer one. Not a new set of skills they should have picked up years ago. Not a stronger pair of arms than the ones I had already given them. One small turn of the wrist, to a place a hand's breadth from where they had been casting the entire time. Not a different ocean, not some far-off worthier stretch of water they had failed to earn their way toward. The same water they were already floating on. One small turn, on nothing but a word, and you will find some. Notice carefully what I did not say to them. I did not say, and now you will finally deserve some. I did not say, now that you have suffered enough, you have at last earned it. Find is the word a person uses for what was already there and waiting the whole time. An arm's length under the surface, while the net kept landing just to the wrong side of it. The difference between that empty night and that overflowing net was never the strength left in anybody's arms. It was one word, heard and obeyed by tired men who had every reason not to bother with it. The fish had not been held back to punish anyone. They were being kept for the exact moment those exhausted men would hear a voice from the shore, and against everything the long night had drilled into them. Throw the net once more, on nothing at all but that voice. And notice this too. Because it is tender and easy to miss, they did not know it was me yet. They obeyed a voice they could not identify, in a light too thin to see a face by. You do not have to have your certainty all worked out. Before the word can work, you only have to throw the net. Recognition came for those men afterward, standing knee-deep in a catch they could not explain. It so often comes in that order. First, the obedience in the gray, then the seeing. Look again now at the question I asked you when this message first began, whether the empty net was my sentence against you. Here is the answer I brought you all this way to hear. The empty stretch was never the verdict on your life. It was the setting, where a word could finally be heard. You had to come all the way to the end of your own strength, before a word from the shore could mean anything to you at all, as long as the net was filling by the sheer force of your own arms. You would never once have needed the voice. The emptiness was not the punishment. It was the clearing of room. There is a difference between rowing and casting that your tired arms have long since forgotten. Rowing is the work you do to move the whole boat by your own power, straining against the water, hauling yourself somewhere by force. And you are very good at rowing. You have rowed through stretches. That should have finished you. But casting is another motion entirely. Casting is opening your hands and letting the net go, out past the place where you can control what happens to it, and then waiting on water you cannot see down into. You have been trying to row your way into a fullness that has only ever come by casting. Straining harder at the oars was never once going to fill the net. Only the open hand and the thrown net and the word from the shore ever did that. So let me loosen the grip of that old belief a little more, because it has cost you far more than a stack of empty returns. It has slowly taught you to receive every good thing as a debt you now owe back. Someone is kind to you, and before the kindness has even finished landing, you are already quietly calculating the repayment. A good week arrives, and you brace against it, waiting for the bill you are certain is coming behind it. The full net, on the rare occasions it does come in, cannot even be enjoyed, because the rule living in you keeps insisting it must have been earned somehow, and that whatever was earned can just as easily be lost again, the very moment you stop performing well enough to keep it. That is the tax the old rule quietly charges you. It will not let a single gift stay a gift in your hands. But what I hand a person does not work anything like a wage. A wage is measured out by the hour and paid against exactly what you produced. It watches your output. It shrinks the moment. Your effort shrinks. It has to be maintained, or it disappears. What I give is not paid out against your output at all. It is given the way a heavy net is given to men who caught nothing across a whole long night. Not because the night finally started working for them, but because the one standing on the shore simply decided the moment had come to fill it. You cannot make yourself worthy of a gift. No matter how many nights you row, you can only still be there in the boat when it comes, with a net that is still in your hands, willing to throw it out once more on a word. By that same gray water, long before that particular day, I had told a few fishermen, if they would come and follow after me, I would make them into fishers of men. The net, you should understand, was never really only about the fish. I was taking hold of hands that already understood nets and knots and empty water, and I was teaching them, slowly, what it feels like to be the ones who are gathered in, because the fullest net I have ever drawn up onto a shore was not the one heavy with fish that day. It was the day I drew you up out of a night that had almost finished convincing you. Nothing was ever coming for you again. You have spent so many years counting the catch. It never once crossed your mind that you might be it. Think of the smallest faith you have left. the threat of it. The frayed corner of a net you can barely bring yourself to throw anymore, because you are so tired of pulling it back empty. That much is enough for me to close my hand around. I have never needed a person to come to me with a full boat and a strong back. I have drawn people up out of far deeper water than yours, holding far less than you are holding right now. The size of what you bring has never been the question. The question was only ever whose hands it lands in. I have filled nets for people who came to me angry. I have filled them for people who came barely believing I was there at all, who threw the net out of old habit, more than out of any hope left in them. The fullness never once depended on the quality of the reaching. It depended on me. So bring me the tired reach. Bring me the half-belief you are ashamed of. Bring me the frayed corner of the net you can still make yourself lift. It is enough. It has always been enough. I will do with it what you were never able to do with it, by yourself. If there is a night behind you that you have never once said out loud to anyone, the long stretch when the nets kept coming back empty, and you quietly decided, somewhere in there, that this was the final word about your life, then give that night one word here, in your own words, and let it stop being a thing you have to carry around alone in the dark. I read the ones that come in written with a shaking hand. Naming the night is the beginning of it, no longer running the whole boat. Place your hand flat against the base of your throat, right there where a word gathers and waits while a person decides whether or not to let it out. That narrow, warm place has been holding a sentence you have never released to anyone. I have fished with nothing to show for it, and I am afraid that emptiness is simply what I am. You do not have to speak it to a living soul. Let it just be true for the length of one slow breath, held there under your own hand. I heard that sentence in you long before it ever found its words, and it did not lower my love for you by so much as a single degree. I once showed a worn-out prophet a river running out from the place where I was, and everywhere that water managed to reach, the dead and bitter sea it emptied into turned fresh and clean, and began to swarm and shine with new life. And all along both muddy banks, people stood spreading their nets out in the sun to dry. I did not show that man a fortune. I did not show him a full account or a fat harvest of coins. I showed him what my nearness does to dead water. It does not hand you a windfall you can spend. It makes the lifeless places begin to live again. That is the promise. And it is a far greater one than the small material thing you may have come here hoping to be handed. Though it will rarely feel that way at first, wherever I am, actually, let all the way in. Into the marriage that has gone silent at the dinner table. Into the work that has come to feel like rowing straight into the wind. Into the grief you long ago stopped mentioning to anyone because they seemed tired of hearing it. The water there slowly begins to move again, and things that had not been alive in you for a very long time begin, without any announcement, to come quietly back. There is no need to measure the size of what I am doing by how loud it is. A river does not shout. It moves against the dead water quietly, at its own unhurried pace, turning one stretch fresh, and then the next. And the fish do not appear all at once, but each in its own season. If you are standing on the bank waiting for a flood to announce itself with a roar, you will walk right past the slow greening, already underway a little further down. Some of the water in you has already begun to move. You have been so braced against the empty net, so ready for the disappointment, that you have not yet let yourself notice the 2 or 3 places that are quietly coming back to life. Breathe out now, slowly, and let the breath leave you longer than it came in. The way a net sinks down through the water when you finally stop snatching it back up every minute to check whether anything is in it yet. A person who is convinced the supply is running out holds absolutely everything in. A person who has begun to trust they are being provided for can afford to let the air go all the way down. Do it once more, unhurried. That one longer breath is a small confession, made without any words at all, that the filling of the net was never yours to manufacture with your own 2 hands in the first place. Now come back with me to that shore, one last time. Because the story did not end there with a full net. When those men finally began dragging the enormous catch in toward the beach, there was already a small fire burning low on the sand, and bread, and a breakfast quietly waiting that no one had hauled up out of the water. I had provision going on the shore, before their net was ever full out on the lake. Sit with that for a moment. The fish were never actually the point of the whole thing. I filled the net so that they would know the voice before they could even make out the face, so that they would learn, down in their bones, that the provision and the presence were both coming from the very same mouth. And there is a detail in it I do not want you to walk past. The moment one of them realized who was standing on the shore, he left the miraculous catch sitting right there in the water and threw himself over the side to get to me. The very thing they had rowed all night to find, the full net, the answered prayer. The second he saw my face, it stopped being what he was reaching for. He wanted the one on the shore, more than the fish in the net. That is what I am after in you, not to leave your boat empty, to become myself, the thing you would swim toward and leave a full net behind for. Because there was a man in that boat that day who had failed me badly not long before, who had stood warming his hands at a different fire in the dark, and swore 3 separate times that he had never even known me. I did not fill the net to pay him back for it, and I did not fill it to shine up his shame in front of the others. When he reached the shore, I fed him. I asked him gently, 3 times over, whether he loved me. One quiet question for each of the 3 times he had denied me in the cold. And I handed him back a place to stand and a work to do. That is what the whole overflowing catch had been in service of, the entire time. Not his living, his restoration, being found again by the very one he was already certain he had lost for good. Stay with the fed part a moment, because it is easy to rush past on the way to the questions. Of all the ways I could have met a man drowning in his own failure, I met him with breakfast. I did not open with the hard conversation. I opened with warmth on a cold beach, and food pressed into his hands. That is nearly always how I come to the ashamed, not with the lecture they are already bracing themselves for, but with a fire lit low and something to eat. Before I ask a single hard thing of you, I feed you. The nearness comes first every time. The correction, when it finally comes gently, and it comes from inside a love you have already been warmed and fed by, never from somewhere outside it. Hear me carefully now, because this is the place where I have to be completely honest with you, and honesty from me is a truer kindness than an easy comfort would ever be. I am not promising you a full account by a particular day on the calendar. I am not handing you a job that lands inside the month, or a sum with your name already written on it, or a body mended on a schedule you can circle and count down to. I never once signed promises shaped like that, and the loud voices that do sign them are not mine, however holy they arrange themselves to sound. What I am promising you runs deeper than any of that, and it holds on far longer. I am promising you my own presence in the boat with you. On the nights it stays empty until first light. I am promising you fruit that I give freely, and not fruit you have to wrench up out of dead water by the sheer force of your will. I am promising you that a life with me finally let into it does not stay barren for good, because everything the river touches, in time, begins to live. Those are not the smaller version of what your heart was aching for. They are the steady version. They are the one thing you were reaching for. That does not drain right back out through your fingers the moment your own strength gives out. Here is one quiet thing you can carry with you into the ordinary days just ahead, if it turns out to help you. Nothing dramatic in it. Nothing that asks you to feel strong or certain first. The next time the old counting starts up on its own, Another day that did not turn into anything you can hold. Another long stretch of effort with an empty net to show for all of it. Let the counting run if it has to. It is far too old a habit to argue all the way down at once. But when it arrives at its usual sentence, the tired one that says this emptiness is simply what you are and always will be, answer it this once with a single honest line spoken back to me instead. Something as small and as plain as this: the net is empty again, and I am still yours. That is the entire practice. You can say it low in the car, or standing at the sink with the water running, or right in the middle of a day that is not going one bit. The way you fought so hard for it to go. It will feel mechanical the first several times, like throwing a net out over water you are already certain is dead and gone. Keep throwing it anyway. You may not feel a thing the 10th time you say it, but somewhere past the 30th, somewhere down in all that plain repeating, without a single one of your circumstances having changed yet, you will notice that the emptiness has quietly stopped being a verdict about you and started being nothing more than a place where you happen to no longer be alone. That is not the smaller thing you were hoping I would say. That is the actual repair beginning. And on the days you cannot manage even that one line, the days the net comes up so empty, you have no words at all left to hand me. You do not have to. Do the thing that man in the water did. Leave the net where it is, and simply come toward the voice. You are not required to arrive at me with a report, or a full boat, or the right words arranged in the right order. You are only ever required to come. There is a fire lit. There has always been a fire lit. The coming is the whole of it. And even that, on your emptiest days, I will quietly help you do. So let the counting rest for now. The boat can sit quiet on the still water a while longer. The net can stay unthrown in your hands for one more breath, and none of it has to go on being a report card on your worth. Remember the gray shore and the tired crew who caught nothing at all across the whole long night. Remember that the water had been holding a full net for them the entire time, an arm's length off from exactly where they had already given up. Remember the small fire that was burning on the sand before the catch ever came in, and the breakfast that no one had earned, and the failed man fed and found and quietly handed back his place among the others. You are not the empty net. You never once were. You are the one I've been calling out to from the shore since the light was still thin and gray. The one I would fill an entire sea to draw up and out of the dark. Throw it out once more on my word. Not because your arms are any stronger now than they were out on the black water last night, only because I am the one asking you to. Amen. Before you drift on from here, what is the one cast you quietly stopped making? The throw you gave up on because a long night convinced you it was pointless? Name it below, in your own words. A short line is enough, and I read every comment set down there. And if someone you love has been rowing through their own long, empty night, sure by now the water has nothing left for them. Send this where they will find it. Their net is not forgotten either.